after completion of meristematic tissue, we have studied in meristematic tissue the type of meristematic tissues on the basis of position and origin, what is the function of meristematic tissue we have dealt. Now the next type of tissue, as per our flow chart, we are supposed to study about simple tissue. What is simple tissue? As the name itself indicates, it is a simple tissue. Simple in organization, in structure and in function. So simple tissue is a type of tissue normally which are having almost more or less similar structure, origin, same structure and almost same function is that. Those type of tissues which are in same in origin, structure and function are called as simple tissues. Now in simple tissues you will be studying about three types of cells here. Those are called as those are called as parenchyma cells, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. These three together constitute the simple tissue. So these three types of tissue together constitute the simple tissue. Now first we will be dealing with the parenchyma tissue. So what is parenchyma tissue? This is the structure of parenchyma cells. These cells are simple living tissues, and these are variously shaped with intercellular spaces. The cells are having cytoplasm and a nucleus in each cell, and these cells form the major part of the primary plant body. All the ground tissue system, cortex, medulla, all that are made of pericycle, fleshy pulp of the fruits. All these tissues are made up of the parenchyma tissue, and the characteristics of the mature parenchyma cell is the capacity of its mature parenchyma shows the characteristics of the division. Now we can also say that a single parenchyma cells may have a single parenchyma cell has a capacity of getting converted into a total plant on the basis of the division capacity it has. In addition to meristematic cell, there are few mature parenchyma cells which shows the continuous state of division. So we can also say that this parenchyma cell has a capacity to transform from a single cell to a total plant body. Okay. Now here all these plant parts of the body are made up of parenchyma tissue. Now on the basis of the where does this parenchyma tissue occurs? The occurrence of parenchyma tissue is, you can see the presence of parenchyma tissues in the cortex, in the pith, in the medulla region, and shall I write all this here? Parenchyma tissue is also occurring in the woody parts, like in soft tissues, in the xylem and phloem, in the fleshy parts of the fruit. So now on the basis of the occurrence, it may be occur in the cortex, medulla, it is occur in the cortex, medulla, pericycle of stem and roots. It is occur in hydrophytes in the form of parenchyma. For example, in hydrophytes in parenchyma, it is also present in the form of mesophyll tissue. It is also present in mesophyll tissue also. What is mesophyll tissue? As we studied or you may know about mesophyll tissue is made up of palisade tissue and spongy tissue. So a tissue which helps in the construction of palisade and spongy tissue is made up of parenchyma cells, and pulpy part of the fruits you can see the presence of parenchyma cells, and again in the xylem and phloem are also made up of simple parenchymatous tissue, and also in the embryo and endosperms. These are the places we can see the possibility of occurrence of the parenchymatous tissue. Now these parenchymatous tissues, I am calling tissue, these parenchymatous cells are the simple cells which are of more or less of isotometric in nature. These parenchymatous cells have 14 phases. 14 phases. One phase, 14 phases means the sides of parenchyma cells like this. One parenchyma cells may have more than 14 phases or 14 phases for maximum, with which one phase of the parenchyma cell is connected with the another So, the connectivity with the neighboring cells is occurring with the help of the parenchyma cell faces. So, maximum number of faces which we see in the parenchyma cells is 14 faces. Like we have cuboid or cubes, it has 14 faces. So, in parenchyma cells the maximum faces available is 14, and the size and the shape of the parenchyma cells varies depending upon the plant organ it is present and the growth of the organ which is occurring at that particular moment. Now, when we come to the cell wall composition, the cell wall of the parenchyma is made up of cellulose. Cell wall is made up of cellulose. It is made up of hemicellulose, and in some cases you will also see the deposition of the lignin in certain parenchyma cells. Now, in hydrophytes, these parenchyma cells are arranged in the form of some enlarged the hydrophytes, they get something enlarged, the intercellular spaces between the cells becomes enlarged. So, this type of parenchyma which is present in some hydrophytes where the intercellular spaces is much more or much larger than that of the basic parenchyma cells. So, these intercellular spaces are also called as air spaces or intercellular spaces which lead to the formation of a parenchyma. Then that parenchyma with larger intercellular spaces when comparing to the normal parenchyma cells, means the parenchyma cells will be smaller and the intercellular spaces will be larger. So, which helps in creating the buoyancy in the hydrophytes. It helps in creating the buoyancy in the hydrophytes. What is buoyancy? It helps because of the larger intercellular spaces, there is a lot of air or spaces filled up in that gaps. If this is an intercellular space, this is an intercellular space, and these cells will be smaller. So, this whole space is filled with air. So, this type of parenchyma which is now called as aerenchyma because of the presence of more air which helps in the maintenance of buoyancy of the hydrophytic plants. Now, these are useful for the protection. Next one is this is about aerenchyma. Now, next we will talk about the different types of parenchyma which we said parenchyma is a simple tissue having same cells. Cells are isotometric nature, living cells, lot of intercellular spaces are possible. Cell wall is made up of cellulose, hemicellulose or lignin is present. The primary plant body is made up of mostly of parenchyma cells. It is present in embryo, endosperm, xylem tissue, cortex, medulla, pericycle, all this we have studied. Now, depending upon the functions or which it is carrying or the place where it is present, there are different types of parenchymatous tissue. So, the first and the foremost parenchymatous tissue is presence of chlorenchyma. First type of parenchyma is chlorenchyma. As the name itself it indicates, chlorine means chlorophyll component is present. This type of parenchyma which is having chlorophyll components or chlorophyll pigments in them which helps in the preparation of food material, making use of the sunlight by a process called as photosynthesis. So, that type of parenchyma is called as chlorenchyma. Okay. Next one is you are having storage parenchyma. Storage parenchyma is a type of tissue which is helpful in the storage of the food material required for the particular parenchyma cells or plant body. In storage parenchyma, we can talk about leucoplasts. Next, another one is, as I said earlier, third one will be aerenchyma. As we have drawn already here diagram, aerenchyma is a type of parenchyma which has cells. Comparing to the normal parenchyma cells, the cells are smaller, but the intercellular spaces between the normal parenchyma cells and aeren parenchyma cells are much different. Aerenchyma is a type of tissue having larger intercellular spaces which have more air inserted in these intercellular spaces, and this will help in maintaining the air balance in the floating hydrophytes or hydrophytic plants. The phenomena of maintaining the air balance is called as buoyancy. Next one is you are having is that is called as water storage parenchyma. Water storage parenchyma is a type of parenchyma which is present in all the water storage parenchyma, is a type of parenchyma which are seen in all the succulent plants. So in those plants where the storage water capacity is scarcity, water scarcity is there, so this type of parenchyma helps in the storage of water to the plant body, normally seen in succulent plants. Next one is idioblasts. Now, what is idioblast? Idioblast is there are some certain secretory material, secondary metabolites which are secreted in the plant body. So, the secretion of this material or the storage of this material is related with the type of parenchyma cells, those are called as idioblasts. And another one is called as transfer cells. So, these are the tissues which are helpful in which are present almost near to the in between the xylem and phloem tissues, and these are helpful in the transfer of material from one component to the other component in case of xylem and phloem tissue. Okay, these are the different types of parenchyma which we can study. Chlorenchyma for photosynthesis, storage parenchyma for storage of reserve food material, aerenchyma for maintaining the air balance known as buoyancy, and water storage parenchyma in succulents where the scarcity of water can be taken up to some extent by storing of water by water storage parenchyma. Next, idioblasts, some secondary metabolites like tannins, gums, resins which are secreted by the plants are in association done with the parenchyma cells. Associated with those are called as idioblast cells, and the transfer cells which are components are which are related with xylem and phloem. The transfer cells are useful for the transfer of components from one tissue to the other tissue. Now, next we will deal with the functions of parenchyma. Functions of parenchyma. The first and the basic function. What is the function? All the reproductive tissue and all the meristematic tissues are made up of parenchyma. Reproductive and meristematic tissues are made up of parenchyma. Parenchyma occupies the center of the primary plant body. All the structures, basically primary plant body is made up of parenchyma. And the basic is the parenchyma is also useful for undergoing various physiological activities which are possible in the plant body. Those are like physiological activities can be done. What are the physiological activities we can say here? Photosynthesis, assimilation, respiration, reproduction, all these are possible here. And under this is also useful, parenchyma can also be useful for the storage and translocation of the food material. It is also useful for the storage and translocation of the food material. And basic function of the parenchyma cells is it is useful for the formation of new cells in the plant body. Means meristematic division is occurring. For example, if you get a wound, that wound will get scratch. So, that scratch is covered by the new skin. That new skin is possible because of the presence of meristematic tissue. Meristematic tissue is all mainly made up of parenchyma cells. So, indirectly we can say that the formation of new cells in the plant body is occurring, can be possible because of the presence of parenchyma cells which are present in the meristematic tissues. For example, you cut your finger, okay, or you burn your finger, you will get a mark on the skin. So, after few days you will see that the skin is getting a new covering of the fresh new skin. So, this new skin on the wound you will get a fresh new skin. So, this new skin is occurring because of what? Because of the presence of division of the cells. The division of cells means where? Meristematic tissue. So, meristematic tissue is basically made up of what type of tissue? Parenchyma cells. So, basic function of parenchyma is all the meristematic tissue. By nature, the meristematic tissue and the reproductive tissue cells are made up of parenchyma cells. It occupies the major part of the primary plant body. It occupies the center for various physiological activities like photosynthesis, assimilation of the food material, respiration, secretion, etc. It helps in the translocation and coordinating the food material, and it is also helpful in the studding and formation of the new cells in the plant body. So, this is about your parenchyma cells. Next, we will be dealing with collenchyma.